Hey everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yeah.
I know it's been a pretty rough couple of weeks,
Yeah.
especially with everything going on in DC and Philly,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot to process.
for sure. Um, our thoughts are with everybody who's been affected by it, but sometimes we need just a little something to
Mm,
to take our minds off things, even if it's something as quirky as Groundhog Day. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. It's a good reminder that even with all the ups and downs, life goes on.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of going on, our furry little friend Punxsutawney Phil had his big moment earlier this morning, and
He did.
he did. So did you see his shadow?
Oh, he did. 6 more weeks of winter.
6 more weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, maybe that just means 6 more weeks of cozy nights by the fireplace and hot cocoa.
There you go. That's the
Wow.
spirit. But it's really interesting how this tradition of a groundhog predicting the weather has become such a big part of our culture.
It is. It really is. I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about it. We're relying on a rodent and his shadow to tell us about the weather.
Right.
You think we'd have something a little more high-tech by now?
Yeah.
So where did this whole Groundhog Day thing even come from?
Well, you might be surprised to learn that it's not just some random American thing. It actually goes all the way back to Europe and a Christian holiday called Candlemas Day, celebrated on February 2nd.
Candlemas Day.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me more.
So Candlemas was a pretty important holiday back in the day. It marked the middle point between winter and spring, and people would bring candles to church to get them blessed.
Hmm.
It was also a time when people would watch the weather. If it was sunny that day, it meant winter was going to stick around for a while longer.
Oh, so kind of like with the groundhog and the shadow, sunny day equals longer winter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's where things get really interesting. The Germans, who loved celebrating Candlemas, they added their own little twist to it. They believed that if a hedgehog saw its shadow on Candlemas Day, winter was going to last longer.
Okay, so now we've gone from candles to hedgehogs. I'm sensing a theme here.
You got it. And when German settlers came to Pennsylvania in the 18th century, they brought that tradition with them.
Hmm.
But hedgehogs weren't exactly easy to find in Pennsylvania, so they needed a substitute. And what did they find? Well, groundhogs, of course. Plenty of those around.
Makes sense. And so the groundhog took over, and the rest is history. Punxsutawney Phil became the star, and Groundhog Day turned into this big, quirky celebration. But part of me wonders, did those Germans ever stop and think maybe the hedgehog just wanted a little bit of sunshine? Maybe it wasn't trying to predict anything at all.
Haha. Well, I guess that's what's so cool about tradition is isn't always about logic or being scientifically accurate, you
Yeah.
know? Sometimes it's just about embracing the silly side of things, finding some joy in the unexpected.
I totally agree. And there is something really charming about this little groundhog. He's all snuggled up in his burrow all winter, and then he pops out to give us the weather report.
It's like he's a messenger from nature, telling us that, hey, even though it's middle of winter, spring is on its way.
Speaking of messengers, I can't help but think about that movie Groundhog Day, the one with Bill Murray,
Oh, yeah.
where he's stuck living the same day over and over again.
Yeah, that's a classic. And it's become so much more than just a movie. It's like a part of our culture now.
It really has.
Yeah.
People use Groundhog Day to talk about feeling stuck in a rut, facing the same problems every single day.
I know what you mean. And I think that's why the movie is so relatable. We've all felt that way sometimes, right? Like we're in this loop and we just want things to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that the movie also gives us a message of hope. Bill Murray's character eventually breaks free from that cycle. He learns from his mistakes and becomes a better person.
That's a really good point. It's a reminder that even when things feel like they're just repeating over and over again, we can still grow and change. We can create a different outcome.
And that's a message that feels really powerful right now, especially with everything that's happened. It reminds us that even when we're dealing with so much pain and loss, we can still choose to keep going, to heal, to look for hope in the future.
I agree. It's in those dark times when we need those reminders the most. That spring always comes after winter. Light always comes after darkness. And that hope can show up even in the most unexpected places.
And sometimes that hope comes in the form of a furry little groundhog popping out of his hole and reminding us that a new season is coming.
Exactly. Groundhog Day, at its heart, is all about that cycle of renewal, the promise of new beginnings.
It's a reminder that no matter how long winter feels, spring is always going to come. And with spring, we get the chance to start fresh, to plant new seeds, to see things grow and change.
That's definitely something worth celebrating, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Even if it means a few more weeks of winter, The excitement of what's to come makes it all worth it.
Thinking about that idea of anticipation makes me wonder, what if you could ask Punxsutawney Phil one question, not just about whether spring's coming early or if we've got 6 more weeks of winter? What would you ask him?
That's a tough one. I'm tempted to ask for those winning lottery numbers, but honestly, I think I'd want to ask him about the future. Not just the weather, but the future for everyone. What kind of world are we building? What should we be focusing on? What are the big challenges coming up and what opportunities are out there?
Wow, that's a really deep question. It makes you realize that even though Groundhog Day is a bit silly, it really connects with something deep in us humans. This need to know what's coming, to figure out what life's all about and what our place is in it.
Yeah. And even if Punxsutawney Phil doesn't have all the answers, just going through this whole Groundhog Day ritual gives us a chance to stop and think about the kind of future we want.
Right. And to remember that even when we're not sure what's going to happen, there's always hope. Hope for things to get better, hope for healing, hope for a world where these awful tragedies we've seen are just a bad memory.
It's like Phil's shadow reminding us that even when it feels like darkness is hanging around, the light always comes back.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And, that feeling of hope, that belief that things can get better is what we really have to hold on to right now.
For sure. So to everyone listening out there, we'll leave you with this. What would you ask Punxsutawney Phil? What hopes, dreams, or questions do you have for what's coming next? Take a minute to think about it, maybe even write your thoughts down.
Because even though we can't predict the future for sure, we can choose to face it with curiosity and strength, and most importantly, with hope.
And that's something worth celebrating, no matter what that groundhog says. Until next time, stay curious, stay hopeful, and keep on diving deep with us.